think I'd like to call this meeting to order. Thank you for all attending, all members of the public, councillors and officers who are joining us for today's meeting. Please be aware that the council is video recording this meeting and this will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. I would just like to highlight some key points of the meeting format. Please can I ask everyone to have their phones turned off or set to silent. The fire exits are via the doors out of the chambers and down the external fire escape stairs or via the main entrance that you entered the venue through, using the back door of the building rather than the front. In the event of a fire, the lift should not be used. The lift lobby has a fire door. If it is not possible to safely escort anyone, should not be used. The lift lobby has a fire door. It is not possible to safely escort anyone out of the building. Oh, I see. You would stand inside the fire chamber. Okay. The assembly point to the rear of the building is on the West Street. Please remain seated unless you are invited to speak or need to take a comfort break. The toilet facilities are out in the corridor you entered through. Members of the public are invited to participate in the meeting with the key points as follows. When the public participation agenda item is introduced, please raise your hand to show you wish to speak, and I will invite you to speak. If you are comfortable standing, please do so to ensure you can be heard across the room. Public participation is limited to a maximum of 4 minutes per person and must be related to an item of business on the agenda. You do not need to state your name when you start speaking if you do not wish to, but we ask that you clearly state the agenda item you are speaking about. I would ask that participants looking to leave the meeting wait until the end of an agenda item to limit distractions for other participants. Members of the public looking to leave the building need to be escorted out by a council officer. To all present, please remember to show respect to others in the meeting and avoid interrupting where possible to enable others to follow the meeting. If any councillor feels concerned about any aspect of the meeting or discussion, please clearly state point of order. I will then gesture for you to elaborate. If anyone present is felt to be behaving unacceptably, they can be ejected from the meeting by resolution. Thank you for listening. On behalf of the council, I would like to thank everyone for attending this town council meeting. Okay, so we should move on to the agenda, I believe. Agenda item number 1, apologies for absence. We have one apology for absence from Councillor Christina Pristo, who has a prior engagement, through which quirk of fate I find myself sitting here. Disclosure of interests. To deal with any disclosure by members of any disclosable pecuniary interests and interests other than pecuniary interests as defined under the Seaford Town Council Code of Conduct and the Localism Act of 2011 in relation to matter on the agenda. Does anyone wish to alert me to anything? Thank you. Okay, agenda item number 3, public participation. To deal with any questions or brief representations from members of the public in accordance with relevant legislation and Seaford Town Council policy. So if anyone has any questions that they would wish to raise, or please do so.
Just a point of order here. I consider with filers in the audience. Can we sort of combine the cycling agenda before we do the first agenda? As Simon, I know that wants to talk about the cycling. I don't know if that helps. Just with
perfectly content to do that.
If that's all they wanted to talk about.
Because basically if you wanted to talk about it in number 3, then we could go to number 5, couldn't we? Unless they want to, they want to talk about it.
We could ask them.
Shall we? I know. Shall we ask them?
I've asked all that before.
Oh right, then. Okay.
Yes,
maybe we'll just carry on.
Whilst I was content.
I'm sure we're very understandable. I was concerned for both of them.
You were. That was
That was very,
Very nice thinking.
very empathetic for my
But it
colleague,
was also
Councillor
good.
Honeyman. So yes, back to public participation. If you would like to say some words, we'd be very happy to hear those. Please.
Number 4.
Okay. I'd like to speak about agenda item number 4, the delivery plan of the climate emergency policy. Just want to highlight some points. Priority 2, enable council to undertake environmental considerations in decision making. Priority 4, play a role in civil leadership. And priority 7, work with local community groups to deliver green activities on land owned by the council. So I'm a trustee of the Mercury Duke Centre, and we've been fortunate to receive SIL funding to do some renovations to the building and to install green technologies to future-proof the building for the future. So we want to install a air source heat pump, but unfortunately the fan has to go outside the building. For the last 2 years we've been trying to find where our boundary is, which has only recently become clear that the back wall of the building is our boundary, and obviously the other side is Seaford Town Council land. So I've spoken to the council about whether we can put the fan of the heat pump on the back wall. It's 40 centimetres deep. At the moment we have an area of soil which is 40 centimetres deep, and then a footpath which was installed for the Mercury but is on STC land. So we've been told that we can't put the fan there, so I'm just asking, obviously with the points in mind, how is the council going to go forward to help decarbonise? Are you going to consider things like this? We are trying to decarbonise a community building, and which the council is going to have to consider for other assets belonging to themselves. So I would like to ask if you could reconsider this decision, please.
Okay, thank you. In terms of protocol here, do we reply to that now, or do we wait for participants?
Normally we wait to number 4, don't we, to the actual agenda item. Isn't that right, Sharon?
I could answer some of that now, if you're happy with that, Chair.
I think while it's fresh in our minds, that's probably a
Okay.
fine move.
So I think we could take that away and have a look at that as officers, to look at the options. We had discussed that before with yourselves, and we would need to re-look again at the boundaries and the space, and perhaps the requirements of the heat pump itself and how that would actually look on the back of the building, and look at that as a project in itself with the officers and go from there. So we could take this away from the meeting and liaise with yourself separately of the requirements that you're after. Does that answer
Yeah, great, thanks.
where you'd like to go? Okay.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't mention this, but I do have a background in heat pumps and associated mechanical and electrical systems. I'd be very interested to understand how you're going to, what you're planning. As an aside.
Can I just,
Oh yes, please.
yeah, can I just
Councillor
ask, you've got 3 other sides to that building. Why is it not going on one of the other sides?
Well, one side is a footpath. The other side is not enough space because there's about 40 centimetres, and then there's a flint wall, and then the back is the nursery's play space, which there is the engineers have said that that's not a suitable space for it. We've looked on the roof and they said that there's too much vibration for it to go up there, so we have looked at other areas of the building.
Would be helpful to have like a plan, actually, just so consider it maybe.
To come back to
Let's
council.
come back to, or at least climate change.
Councillor Sullivan.
Slight point of order, Chair.
I think we should discuss it when it comes to us. I don't
Yeah.
think we should be discussing it now. We are listening to public participation, and even though I think it's really great, but we will be discussing it in full as councillors at the agenda item when it comes up onto the agenda.
Okay.
So you might not want to overtake that by doing it now. Sorry.
Okay, point taken. Any other public participation? Please.
Agenda item 5. It's regarding the cycling study. I volunteered to help Seaford Community Partnership with their study that they've done, where they had a external expert come along and look at Seaford as a whole to produce this. In particular, the most important thing in there that relating to what the town council can do is bike parking, which has been mentioned within there, which is the second point. There are a couple of areas where we found that cycle parking probably could go. One of them is in the Salts, near the tennis courts, and the other one was highlighted as Seaford Barn. But I'm concerned that if this is the method that would need to go every time you wanted to install a very small item of equipment like a cycle parking, like a rack, they're very similar to the one that you see outside the outside the post office now. They're simple racks bolted to the floor, and it seems to suggest that the route would be come into here, then maybe community services every time they need to be done. It seems a bit narrow, considering that an expert's come along and produced a report, and it's got recommendations for each of the areas, which probably could be taken as a whole and just agreed carte blanche, if it's possible to get cycle parking put into these different places, that the council would just be happy to go ahead, especially when with these two items on here, it's looking like the actual racks would probably be funded elsewhere. It's just the council would be involved in the installation costs, which is in the hundreds of pounds. But actually, the racks themselves, for example, the one that's outside the post office, and there's one at the bottom of Broad Street now, which were both installed as part of helped to get installed as part of the COVID. There was active travel funding that came around, and they were done by Sussex County Council. Those racks are only around sort of £300 or £400 before excluding VAT anyway. So this isn't huge expenditure. For example, in the Salts as well, just a wider policy on cycle parking all rolled in would be helpful, because in the Salts at the moment, if you want to go and play a game of tennis, I'm assuming you walk or drive. You can't leave your bike down there. So as a £90,000 project, there was no thought to spend £500 on some bike parking there as part of the overall project. So actually bringing bike parking more in line with all of the different locations that people may want to travel in the town that are owned by Seaford Town Council as a policy instead of just an individual piecemeal would be much more useful from the point of view of the report that we produced, because the information's all there now, and the sort of the research has been done. So I'd like to sort of, when you look at that point, I'd like to consider what's been asked and see maybe it needs to be, the scope needs to be widened a bit, and considering that cycling is such an easy win when it comes to public health and climate change.
Okay, thank you very much. We can cover that under that agenda item. Any more for any more? No. Thank you very much for those very useful thoughts. I believe that takes us to agenda item 4, climate change update report. Okay, so this is agenda item 4, is the climate change update report dated September 2004, to provide a further update on the key work being undertaken by the council in relation to the climate emergency. I suppose I will ask if anybody has any questions on this from the Councillor Hanneman.
Thank you, Chair. Can we carry on what Gemma McFarlane was saying? We might be talking about the heat pump expression that might. Obviously, there's different sorts of heat pumps, and I know that as well. There's some of them, there's different mythology, but they still basically have to be outside, don't they? Unlike a gas boiler, which can be more inside, but then you still have to have ventilation, don't you, for that? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, originally for the land of the youth centre used to be owned by the county council, didn't it? Originally, when it became a trust, I don't know, does the town council own the whole now? They don't, do they? I don't think they do. It used to, originally it was county council, but it was a youth centre officially, so I know that.
I can't.
Can I answer that
Please.
question? So the boundaries for the Macreed Youth Centre and the Crouch
Yep.
recreational area meet.
Yep, obviously.
So the path that we've discussed
Yep.
on the back, that runs
Yep.
along the back of the
Yep.
youth centre, runs, that's ours, as Seaford Town Council's, and
Oh.
it runs right up to the boundary of the Macreed Youth Centre.
So who owns that land as such? Or that's immaterial in a way for that discussion, isn't it?
That's Seaford Town Council's land.
So where the pump wants to go is on Seaford Town Council's land? Or is it right on the boundary, effectively?
The pump will be attached to the Macreed Youth Centre, and then it would overhang the Seaford Town Council land because of the depth of the pump.
This is, I think this is a point of information.
Yeah.
These things may be able to be mounted on braces off a wall, but when I've seen them mounted, they tend to be on a concrete plinth on the ground. If that was the case, I would like to propose that a suggestion is made to Lewes District Council that we could lease them the space they're required to put a concrete pad down, so that that can be facilitated to help the aspirations of the youth club and the people who are running it, the governors and the trustees, because it seems ridiculous that they should not be able to do this for the sake of the fact that we own 40 centimetres of ground which they can then not use. I mean, I think there's two things for clarification. Can the thing be put on brackets off the wall? But I imagine it's a vibration issue. I imagine it probably isn't possible. Where I've seen them before, they've got to have a concrete pad on the ground. And I would suggest, why couldn't we lease that bit of area that would be needed and make an agreement with Lewes District Council that they lease it off us. And I would have thought if the lease is drawn up properly, as we hope all our leases are going to be forthwith, there won't be a problem with that arrangement.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. You make a very good point. I think,
No, go to, I'm fine.
okay, Councillor Matthews?
No, I thought Councillor Meek's suggestion was very good about this land. I think where my head's at is this is going to become an increasing. The question's not going to go away, is it? Is what I'm going to say. And there's the other organisations coming forward having the same questions and potentially the same answers. So it'd be good to kind of consider this district, across the district, town and wide, district-wise, I think. So, if it's all possible.
Thank you. I would certainly say that it seems a shame not to be able to move forward with what can be a very useful green agenda for the sake of some land issues which date back from well before. Sorry.
Yep.
Councillor Markham.
Am I allowed to speak actually? I'm not sure.
I think we'll suspend everything for
So from my perspective, I'm thinking disposal of land issues and which Sharon might be able to understand. And but I totally hear Councillor Matthews and Councillor Meek, and I really think that we're sitting here in a climate change subcommittee, and the word is climate change. So if we can't align some of our policies to a climate change agenda, I'm not sure why we've got a climate change subcommittee. Because, I'm sorry, because seriously, we know we have to change policy and move forward. And this has been a bit of an experiment to have the climate change subgroup, so it's fine, really, it's great. And these things are going to be explored and they are increasingly going to come up. So we are going to be challenged in the future, and this is a bit of a test drive for us in actual fact. So it's great to have one of those, Chair. And I just think that for all the challenges that we're being presented, it's good. It's actually good to have challenges because these participants here will not be the first people or the last people to come and present this issue to us across Seaford, and it would be good for us to get our heads around how this particular committee and the aspirations it has, and also how it links to our council strategy anyway, within the climate change box, because we've got one of those in there, how those overlap into other policies that we concern ourselves with on a regular basis. So it's a bit like, I have a background in the NHS and we talk about health in all policies. So we want environment in all policies. So we need to environment check our policies in a way at some point as we go through updating our policies, and that will take some time, but we have for another 2.5 years. So we should have time to just make sure that our policies are fit for purpose to make these types of decisions. Because as clearly there has been a lot of investigation so far into the building, and there are challenges with the building. So I think I absolutely know that we are challenged when we've got policies written down and we just can't jump out of those policies. I totally understand that as procedure, but there's absolutely nothing to stop us bringing that policy or the policies that interact with this particular request back to us here or to CSC or wherever you want to bring them and say, are these policies fit for purpose in terms of our environmental strategy?
Thank you, Councillor Markham. I'm not sure who was first then, Councillor Taylor?
No. So I know nothing about heat pumps, but if that is going to go on council land, which I don't have any objection to, however, has there been any risk assessment as to what's going to happen to a member of the public walking past that if it's right up to the footpath? Does it emit steam, water, anything? And also, what about the risk of vandalism and theft?
Did you want to go first?
Yeah, sure.
Councillor Taylor?
Mine was a different point, so I think we should deal with that question.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
quite happy to come back to mine a bit later.
Councillor Hanneman?
Yes, obviously the couch is a big discussion point in recent years in this council, but I think there's always been, in a lot of ways, this is a by the by. It's always been like an open. It always like to be looked as nice and open and all integrating in without any boundaries between certain facilities. Even though there's obviously a little bit between around the bowls and the football pitch as such, but yeah, it's meant to have that open feel, and I think that's often one of its issues. Yeah.
Can anyone answer my questions?
Councillor Meek?
I was just going to come back on that point because it came up at a planning meeting at LDC about heat pumps, because there was a noise problem with somebody's heat pump, which the noise was reflecting off a wall and a neighbour could hear it. Like the sound was, they're supposed to be very, very quiet, but this was in South East, where there's a very quiet place. And so what was happening was this noise was reverberating off the stone wall onto the house and back to the neighbour, who wasn't very far away. But you think, really, can you hear that? But they can in the still of the night. So, well, the answer was to put it in, you can put them in a box. You could box them in with in a wooden box, providing there's ventilation holes within it. I think that would solve the problem of vandalism and also of theft if there was going to be that danger. I don't believe that anything comes out of it like steam. It's a heat exchange. There's no steam comes off it. It's very kind of benign in that respect. I think it is just getting rid of a certain amount of heat or a certain amount of cold or whatever it is. But I don't think it wouldn't impinge on anybody walking past. But if it was in a box also, I think that danger would be mitigated. So I think that maybe answers most of your queries. Whether that's completely right or not, I don't know. So that's my understanding.
I'll just add something to that, if I may. Your refrigerator at home, with that coil at the back, that's a reverse of a heat pump. Or a heat pump is a reverse of a refrigerator. So that coil at the back, which is discharging heat into your kitchen, that's essentially what you have outside with a fan just blowing across it to speed up the heat exchange. So you're right, there's no adverse environmental effects from that particular event. And the acoustic measures that you're talking about, you can use those, certainly. And I mean, even now, there are the latest outdoor condensers are much quieter, can be much quieter. Yes. If we completed those points, then I think Councillor Taylor was thinking of another idea.
Yes, I was more wanting to go back to the point that you made, Councillor Markwell, about policy. Often, in my experience, when discussing policy, a policy is adopted which is normally X, Y and Z, but it does allow for exceptions, because otherwise we just tie ourselves up in knots. And I don't know if we had that kind of language. Because I'd like to think, in terms of the policy that we're using, we're adopting, we're implementing, or we're going to be implementing, is one that suits the particular environment within a range. Are you with me? Sorry,
I
I'm meant to talk to you through the chair.
might be able to chair. I might be able to respond, but Sharon might be able to respond better at disposal of land.
So the adaptions
Yeah.
to policy, yeah, we'd need to look at disposal of land, and if we are going to give a piece of land to a community group or a charity or another organisation of any kind, we have to do some other work around that within the council, because we would be looking at gifting the community's land to somebody else for use.
Okay.
So there is that point.
Take that point.
And then with regards to adapting policy, I think we would need some clear guidelines as councillors and officers to make sure that any adaptation is adhered to for all groups or projects that we are to take some decisions on. Because it could become a bit muddled for all of us.
The thing is, we're in new territory, aren't we? With heat pumps on public buildings. I think, unless there's lots of them around that I've just not been aware of, which is quite possible. But I feel that we're treading on new ground. Just, I mean, it could be seen as a minor example, but it could be a precedent. So I'd like to think that, we don't necessarily have, we may be thinking about a different kind of arrangement than we've had before. This is the problem with policy, that it can get baked in and then not fit the new situation that's coming up. I don't know if that's the case that we're dealing with now, but it sounded a bit like it.
Yeah,
Councillor
thank you. Councillor Taylor, and also for your knowledge, which is really helpful.
Yeah.
I do understand, because we've been through disposal of land recently, and I do understand that it's tricky and there's a legality in dealing with it as well, so it's not as simple as. Having said that, I also think we are in newfound land, basically, and in a way, if we're going to go forward with any type of climate change or environmental issues, then, I don't know, maybe at some point we need to brainstorm environmental issues, change and policies, that are part of SGC at the moment, and think very, very seriously about what types of things we need to be looking at. Another issue is going to up with the cycling in a minute.
Yeah.
Same problem.
Mm.
So I think it's not that we can't do it. It's just that we don't have and it's not that we don't have the wherewithal to do it either. We just don't have the right, legally, the right ability in the policies that are currently written to do it, you know, without actually going against that policy. But, you know, councillors are there to change policy. That's what we do, discuss policy and change policy. And I guess what I said it the last time, you know, we are in new chartered waters in terms of environment and how we could be thinking about a proposal of a report that says, how can we make all our community land more environmentally friendly or something, you know, and then we list all the things that we really need to do to make that happen, and that will be about buildings that are on it and fences that are on it and waters that are on it and all these things. So we could do that in the future, we could. So it's not that we wouldn't and we can't, it's that we just have to have enough support to be able to do it, because every time we decide we want to do something, we have to ask our officers to do that for us. At the moment we're a little bit strapped on that agenda, and I do think we would have to give it some due consideration, because that is officer time and it's also probably a bit of legal time, and then it's about back and forth to committee and then full council and whatever. So this stuff, unfortunately, in the way that we make decisions, does take a while. However, I think it would certainly be the right thing to do would be to open this up for further discussion maybe at some point, and think about it, or maybe even at this committee, you know, a little bit of homework by councillors to help looking at the overlapping policy and then having a bit of a brainstorm about it at some point and bringing it back would be a good thing. Everything costs money in terms, nothing's free, because officer time isn't free if it's this or it's something else. And at the moment we're absolutely focusing on the things we actually have to do, and probably not bringing up new stuff, and I do know that. Having said that, I do think this is important, and I do think there's a future agenda here that can come back time and time again from other people. And we should be environmentally savvy. We should know, there's many of you around this table, much more than me, who are, and who know how this could go. So I think we need to be exploring it, really. That's all I've got to say.
Councillor Taylor.
Could I just respond? Two things. I don't know if our visitors, guests, are aware of the current constraints that you're referring to in relation to officer time, which is a very real situation that we're all dealing with, but it's also quite new. So that's the first point. And the second point is, in relation to this particular issue of heat pumps, this piece of work might have been done, but you know, I'm thinking that might the Lewis District Council have some examples of, you know, where they've dealt with similar issue? Because people must be installing heat pumps. Well, we know they are. We know that it's become. So I'm just wondering whether there's a precedent somewhere in the system as well that it'd be worth looking at. I realise that takes more time because someone's then going to have to look into it. But it's just I'm raising it. Okay.
District councillor. Maybe district councillor can look at that.
Yeah, if I may just respond to that, I mean, I absolutely take your point. If we're talking about policy and how we go forward with that, in this particular instance, for me, it's fairly cut and dry. It's a particular situation, and my suggestion would be we just need to somehow make that bit of land available in what way we can.
Yeah.
And if it means a one-off departure from policy, well, can we just do it? And then we can see whether it works. And then we can maybe upgrade policy to try and go forward and say, this kind of thing will work. We just need to have various things in place to make it feasible for community groups to be able to access, whether it's a little bit of land or a bit of space or some kind of permission to do something or other to do with these kind of change issues which we want to deal with. I'll say something else that I think relates more to the cycling thing next. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor DeBass?
Yeah, I don't think it's a policy issue, it's the disposal of assets. That's the problem. You know, I mean, I don't think anybody's disagreeing with the installation of a pump. It's how you deal with the disposal of assets, and that is not a policy, that is a law. You have to abide by the law on disposal of assets. One of the things you can do is exchange. So if you give them this bit of land at the back of the building, you could take back this bit of land at the side of the building and do a straight swap. That's allowed. But you can't just willy-nilly give away square footage of bits of land. That's what we're dealing with here.
Through you, Chair, I wasn't suggesting that. I was suggesting making a formal agreement to lease it in some way. But if you say you can do that, Chair, I would have thought that may be a possible thing. If that's a legal way you can do it, maybe that's an avenue that should be investigated, Chair. I don't know.
If that's just directed to me,
to all of us.
I think that's a very valid line of thought. I mean, I'm not familiar with the plans of the Creed Centre and how it all relates to other spaces. Just a quick question, does the McCreed have a flat roof or a pitched roof?
I don't know. I think
because if it's got a flat roof,
I think
you could put it on the roof.
I think Emma said it couldn't be put on the, Gemma said it couldn't be put on the roof because of vibration. So I think she's already said that it wasn't, you know, they've looked into all the options.
Yeah.
And I think this is what they've come down to.
Well, I think the concept of seeing if there's a land swap or a leasing arrangement or something is a valid kind of direction to take for that. I don't want to sum up just yet, but we must be able to find a way around this in the climate change issues that we're trying to sort out.
Did we not just hear though that, sorry, we go around in a circle. Did we not just hear that there's only one side of the building where this was possible because the other three sides were taken up with other things?
Yeah.
So we wouldn't be able to stop that.
Just give us a bit of land in the middle of the building, you know. Anyway, I'm kind of moving off thought then.
Okay.
Other questions?
I guess where this is going, I'm just trying to think really is, we'll talk about process here, aren't we? Because this isn't going to go away. So either it's heat pumps or it's going to be the batteries for solar panels, whatever you asked to put on sides of houses and things like that. So I think we need to set up some guidelines, or the council needs to set up some guidelines on the process of how to bring this forward to councillors, such as plans, so we know which sides are which sides are more agreeable to having heat pumps to them or not for whatever reasons, and therefore we've chalked off all the kind of the benefits and burdens of the options, of those options available. We want to bring it to us now, so whether it's disposal of land, so where would that disposal of land be? Then the exchange, I guess, that's what I'm saying. But yeah, it's a learning process for me, this is the first time I've had to think about it.
Thank you very much. Okay, just to help you with summing up. I think it's all a brilliant idea. I really do. I don't want to raise expectations in terms of how much work the officers can take on at the moment. That is my absolute priority as mayor. So I'm not being chair, I'm being mayor about it, but I am saying that at the moment we are really strapped for office support. This is a new project now. If we investigate it, I know it's been investigated, but to take a look at all the other things that have been suggested is a little bit new. I do think it should be on the list of things that should be looked at though. And I definitely think, you know, when we're looking at projects and things that we can do, there are things that are environmental and there are things that are other things, and that's how we look at things. So I would really hope that this can be put forward as something that can be investigated, but my only personal cautionary word is it's not going to be tomorrow. But if you believe that we're interested and we support the issue and we support the strategy of all of this, because I think that's exactly what we've talked about this year, is about environmental issues is really important to us. And so we're not using any other situation to say we're not doing that, but it's not going to be the top of our agenda at the moment.
We put it back to another subcommittee in a couple of months, 2 or 3 months to more, just to kind of check in, see where we're at with things, whether there's more time available, etc.
I'm not sure, Councillor Honeyman?
We talked about heat pumps or other issues.
Heat pump still, we're on the heat pump topic.
Well, I mean, you could argue that 2.1 also could include that as part of this desktop exercise, but that's a wider issue. We're going to talk about heat pumps wider than this particular budget. But of course, at the McCure, it might be an emergency situation. There might be no heating in there, and then the boiler, the existing boiler might have packed up for all we know, and it's actually going to, if something doesn't happen, it's going to be very freezing out in the winter. I don't know the ins and outs of that. So I don't know what the timeline is. So in one sense, you know, you may want to try to have a one-off exercise to actually pursue this. But I know there's the wider issue with what Councillor Martin was saying with heat pumps generally, but I don't know the emergency situation. I don't know if it's an emergency or not. It's not. If it's not, then it's not. If it's not an emergency, then yeah, I can see you delay it a bit more. But if it's an emergency, then I think you can't leave it alone. If you know what I mean. Because I think people expect a form of heating in there at some stage. There you go. That's just
I think what you're saying could be a financial cost, because if you're looking to
Which
change your
time
boiler over, then you don't want to spend like £3 grand for that £3 towards a heat pump. That's what.
Which is what I'm trying to say. But if the current system's packed up, you're not going to get it renovated, are you? So you think it could be a bit more imminent, really. Ideally, isn't it?
Yeah.
You don't really want to invest in something else.
No.
I mean, you can probably do something temporary for one winter, but that's about it, though, isn't it?
Can I just, I think, without having heard specifically, I suspect this isn't one of those emergencies. So, that was, Councillor Hunter, you completed your thoughts?
Yeah, but you can see I was touching on the wider issue.
No, sure. Yeah.
I was just going to ask if it would be reasonable to ask for a copy of the engineer's report to go to you, and you could have a look at it.
Be happy to.
And give your opinion.
If such a report exists, I personally would be able to have a look and I'd be very interested to do so. I may even be able to contribute in some way.
I support that proposal.
Yep.
As far as the specific topic about concrete heat pumps and maybe heat pumps in general, I think Councillor Marcos summarised ably, far more ably than I probably can do. So I'm happy to leave that topic and move to any other questions. Councillor Hayman.
Well, obviously, yeah, we won't be talking about other town council buildings with heat pumps. That's off the agenda at the moment, really. Although I think you'd expect if SHB did move on, we'd expect another heat pump there.
I think the issue in the summary was there's a specific issue, topic with Creed, and there's a broader issue about
that's what we can.
how environmental aspects can be improved and engendered on town council assets and property.
But let's move on to number 4, the People's Assembly. I'm a bit intrigued by this. I don't know if it ever did happen. I don't know if Councillor Mead was involved with maybe his contacts with like the SCA or the other environmental groups in the town, because I was trying to work out what it was. Well, obviously, I mean, it's slipping because it's not going to happen in autumn 23, is it?
Sorry, what are you referring to?
Number 4.1, 4.2 about the civic leadership, the role in civic leadership,
Councillor Hunter,
relating to the.
I had exactly the same thought.
Yeah, I was just wondering who was going to be leading us. I know Council Mick was talking about it about 6 months ago, I suppose, about assemblies, but I'm not quite sure where we are, if it's going anywhere at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, can I, just before we move away from the creek, can we just, I would like to see it in the minutes that we, because it's an important youth centre, it's important to the town, it's important to the young people and their parents, and we want to continue to support it. They've got some money, so that's in place. Just to note that we want to move forward with this. I don't want it just to be a kind of blank.
I think,
But you know, I'm sure
I think
that
the
you're
suggestion was that it goes on to, it becomes an item on the Seaford Town Council projects list, but there was certainly, there wasn't necessarily an immediacy about how that was going to be dealt with.
So due to constraints of staff time, it's something that we could put on the list but not activate it at this stage, something like that.
That's, I think, the intention of the putting it
Yeah.
onto the projects list at this point. So it's on the horizon. And depending on how good your binoculars are,
Yeah,
you'll be able to see it.
thank you.
And that can be an added thought onto the minutes. And that actually, there should also be, the Seaford Town Council projects list should include the broader review of how we, and maybe through in our working sessions, in order how we deal with these specific environmental issues as they're bound to come up. Because it won't just be heat pumps, it'll be solar panels, you know, all kinds of things. Sorry, Councillor Meek.
Thank you. Just looking at the whole agenda item and all the things that are listed there, I think, you know, as Councillor Mark has said, and Councillor Taylor, we are strapped for officer time. And some of these things require funding, which may come from somewhere else. But what we have to recognise is that whatever funding we get, it still has to be actioned by officers, and that takes a huge amount of time. Even if we got somebody else like a bid writer to try and find the money for it, we actually still have to use officer time unless we actually contract out a completely separate officer to look at funded by something else, by some other kind of stream possibly, in order to enable these climate change things to go forward. Because looking at what we've got here, some of them are aspirations, which we probably know aren't going to come to anything probably within the next 9 months, just because of the particular situation we're in. So although these key things might have been going forward, and we have achieved some things, a lot of it is like a bit like wading through treacle now, because we're really stumped. That's just my comment on this. A lot of these are very good ideas. And I mean, the Southfield Barn project will be going forward due to the work you've done, Chair. And that's great, but some of these things may not be able to be actioned very soon. You can just get to the next stage.
I understand that. I'll just make a comment actually on the Seaford Barn strategic briefing document, which will come to full council in the very near future, we hope. And we can all enjoy reading that at our leisure. You're right, there's many aspirations here at the moment, and I think, whilst it's not what I would like to necessarily say, I think item 4, next steps, actually summarises where we're at, and it does require the issues of looking at staffing structure and further training and issues like that, and this is where we're caught up in at the moment. I heard my professor at university once say, much to my chagrin. Or chagrin, I'm not sure. Unless there's...
Well, yeah, the number 4 in the chart there, the autumn 23, the people saying it's not going to happen, is it? So can we change that to something else? So as appropriate, or soon as? Or?
I actually think that all these items should actually,
It has been held by local community.
We don't know, I haven't. Has it been done? Has it been fed back?
Sorry.
I haven't been onto that. Has anyone been onto that link?
oh, which link's that? Oh, there's carbon footprint. The things,
People assembly.
oh, people assembly.
Has it been done?
I'm not 100%, I'd have to go back and check the records.
I think we would have heard somewhere.
Okay, so maybe
But I
I'll check.
just got a point of that date, query on that date, autumn 23. As we're sort of in autumn 23 now.
24.
Oh. I don't think it happened in 23, did it? I don't think. Did it happen in 23 then?
I'd need to check the records.
What year are we in? Sorry, I must admit,
Let's not debate just now. Our officer will go away and check,
What, which year it is?
No!
Oh,
if it ever happened. Yeah, yeah.
I think one of us, Chair, would have known if it was that particular
That's
item
fine.
would have
That's
gone
fine,
ahead.
and
So-
there will be a double check on that.
Yeah.
Unless there's any other specific issues on this particular agenda item,
I just think agenda item 7 is interesting.
second?
Yeah. Well, our visitors brought it up, but we do state, work with local community
Oh,
groups
yes.
to deliver
Yeah,
green
right.
activities on land owned by the council. So I kind of do think it's a bit of a, if we are going to do that, when we need to think about, you know, how we do that. It's not just having great examples because we've managed to do something that's easy. We really
Need to
do need
continue
to understand
working.
that there are going to be challenges in doing that, that's all I would say.
Mm.
And just to take, that was brought up in public participation, I do think we
Yes.
should note that in the minutes,
Yeah,
that we have stated that,
Good reminder.
but, you know, if it just becomes complicated and we can't do it, that's not really following the strategy that we adhered ourselves to.
Actually, sorry, I'm just going to make a point. In theory, item 4 was brought up as well in public
Yeah, it was, yeah.
participation. And this is to do with this report on Seaford carbon footprint, which has been published, but I'm not sure how we're following up on that. And this People's Assembly, if it hasn't happened, we should give very strong consideration to having one on the list of Seaford Town Council projects. So, Councillor Lee.
I mean, I was elected in the previous administration very much because, or partly because there was a group in North Seaford who wanted somebody to advocate on their behalf to use one of the green spaces that Seaford owned for a community group, green group. And 6.5 years later, we have no agreement with that group, even though they are a group which has got a secretary and a chairman and everything like that, and there are about 50 or 60 members. So I would say, and by and large, we have failed as a council to engage with the communities on the grassroots, on the ground, on the grassroots level, when some of them have tried to engage with us. I think that's a shame, and I don't know how we get past that. But I don't think we are delivering on those working with community groups, I have to say. And some of it is to do, again, as Councillor Dubai has said, to do with assets and how you allow their use. And it's not like you're giving them to somebody, but if you allow people onto those sites to do something with, you've got to, as a council, know that what they're going to do aligns with what maybe everybody in the community would like. It's rather like wilding verges. Half the community don't actually want to see grass growing long. They want it cut. They want it community, you know, like it always used to be. So this is a very gritty problem, and I understand. You know, we do have to be able to try and do the right thing, but we have great aspirations for doing these green initiatives, But we seem to be falling down, maybe because we haven't got the right approach to how to go about it, but it seems to be a lot of it is to do with we get bogged down in the protocol of it and how to make a lease or how to make an agreement with a tenant to use our land. And I think it's all bound up with what we've been talking about for the past hour, in a way, because this is the nitty-gritty of it that's difficult to handle. Because, as was pointed out by somebody, once you allow a group to go forward, what if in 2 years' time the group falls apart, then you go onto the land, you find there's all sorts of stuff there that they say, well, we're doing this for the environment. You go, well, we might not kind of think that that's the right thing to do for the environment, but some of the people might. So that we have to have some kind of oversee on it, but you want to give people latitude to do certain things that they think are good, and who knows what exactly is the right thing to do as well. That's another thing that's difficult to know, because a lot of this is rather like, you know, the rewilding project at Net, you know, who knows if it's exactly the right thing. It's reaping rewards, but we don't know if it's exactly the right thing to do. A lot of it's a bit trial and error. But I do think we failed in some ways. It may have been because we've been too worried about what might happen to that green space. And therefore, if it did get into disrepair, what's the cost to the council to bring it back to what it was before? I'm just stating these things because I've seen it from where I came from, as being involved in a local community group who really still haven't got what they really wanted to start with. And we did this all at the fair that we did about 4.5 years ago, whenever it was, 5 years ago. We said, and I put this big board up saying these are the plots of land that we would like to release to the communities for green initiatives. And we haven't really done any of that. Batchington Pond is without outside that remit because it was already an established group for ages, which was well established. Sorry, thank you. Sorry, I went on a bit.
Thank you, Councillor Meek. Thank you, forward. Councillor Pass.
Councillor Bristol's been asking for years for a green space policy. Can that be put on the list? And I know that's a huge task, but if that can go on the project list, please, I think that would address the problems that we're having.
Actually, sorry, just to bring that, can I suggest then, based on these issues, if you create the outline of the Seaford Town Council Climate Change Subcommittee projects list, just line items, and circulate that to the committee members, so that we could then also have a view, and quite honestly we may take this up outside this meeting as well, because that's the only way these things get moved forward more quickly, so we can have a more definitive list of items that we feel need to be attended to. I understand that there might be prioritisation and all those other things, but at least they're on the list, and I'm just going to come back to next steps. You know, we're in this kind of transition period, and I think, you know, if so long as these things are on the list, within the next period of time when, you know, the officer structure and numbers are assessed and reviewed in the correct way, then we can actually start to make them better and real progress on all these things. Because just for one of the reasons I joined the council was specifically to be on the climate change subcommittee, because the only way you could be on this was to be a councillor. So yes, so I really want to see some real progress, and between us we need to be pushing on this 4.2 to get the right, you know, the right balance of staffing and even committee structure to help the climate change issues that we actually all feel very strongly about. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Just a bit of clarity on green spaces, because it's a bit more complicated with just green spaces, because as covered in the Labour plan, of course, published in 2020, soon to be reviewed, you've got the different definitions. You've got the local green spaces as defined under the Localism Act. You've got those style ones which are picked up in Labour plan, all the various sites around the town. And in a way, a lot of definitions of what a green space is all covered in that particular document. So we don't really basically want to be duplicating what's covered in the neighbourhood plan. I mean, that's just something I think you've got to be a bit mindful of in this particular setting. So,
Even the 2016 is undertaken now.
well, you know, the localism act's still there, and the definition of what local green space is and the green space, there's different definitions of what green space is. So having a broad approach to say what a green space is a bit more complicated than that.
That's fine, and that will come out of the reviews on the,
Yeah.
once that list is in place,
Yeah.
and more detail is added to that particular item. all those
So the neighbourhood plan update would be on the list anyway.
There would be input from the climate change subcommittee under the neighbourhood plan, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, Councillor Marquardt?
Yeah, sorry, I'm a little bit confused by the word list, and what we're asking for here.
Okay.
Is this not the list?
It is and it isn't.
I'm a bit confused, is this the
Okay,
list,
so-
Chair? Or are you saying that in the minutes, you would want further items added to the list, if this is the list? Sorry.
Okay, let me see if I can
Yeah,
clarify that.
yeah.
You put me right in the spot here, you really don't.
Well, I do, but I'm just wondering if it's a different list, like it's the
No, that's
4.2
fine.
examples list, or whether it's the table list.
Well, I mean, the items that we've discussed, like actually, you know, working with communities. I know it says it here. Where does it say it here?
Well, that's
Play a role in
4.4.
civic leadership.
Yes, it's 4.1, 4.2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, but just make it as a line item.
In this list.
Or you can have it as a
Projects and
agenda.
facilities community list, projects list.
Yeah, I haven't even seen the projects list. How is
That
that?
list is going to come to full council in September next week.
Okay, so that a list exists, and it's not in this format, presumably.
No.
So it's having the climate change subcommittee items. We've got to be careful now, because if it's going to full council next week, none of these things will be on it, unless it's already on it. Just a thought. So it's that kind of thing. They might not like line items, and then once it gets to the point where we have people who have the time to do it, then that gets expanded out, and the thought goes into it, and you know, resolutions are, you move forward.
Could I make a suggestion, please, Chair?
Sure.
Do you think maybe as Chair at the moment, we
Yes.
could discuss this with Councillor Bristow as you're working with her, is to perhaps come up with the list, now you've had the reflection of the meeting, and ask members of this group, you know, circulate your own list between you, so that it's fairly definitive, and then pass it over.
Okay.
It won't necessarily get to full council next week,
It
but it
hasn't
will
got
be a
a, it
list.
hasn't got a chance, but yeah.
No, I
But
don't think,
there's-
no, I don't think it
there's
has,
an
but that's not an issue,
Mhm.
because I think this group meets,
Yes, yes.
and if you agree between yourselves that this is a definitive list, you can bring this list as an agenda item to another meeting. And it could be a list that still has the headings at the top, you know, what's happened. I mean, there's not actions to be taken in the update.
Mhm.
So you can add additional items, but I think if you did it yourselves and agreed it and then brought it to another meeting, you could definitively get this meeting to agree it, and then you can decide where it goes. I think at the moment,
Okay, so
because you're coming up with a few random topics, but not everybody's had a chance
That's
to
only
maybe
because I
think
wasn't
through. No, I'm not,
thinking
that's
about
not a
this
criticism,
beforehand, but
Chair.
no,
I'm
that's
just
fine.
thinking that
Yeah.
there may be other things you'd really like on that list that,
Mm.
at the moment, the only things on the list are the things that we've had a quick brief chat about, but I should imagine the list could be longer. And just to say a point, that in 2.3, you've got some working priorities on the climate emergency policy in that link, and you've also got in 3.2 updates there, and I think it would be worth, there's links to both of those, and I think it would be worth checking them.
just to be, virtually every single one of those things on that list
Yeah,
occurred before the last councils were elected. They're legacy issues, which is great, because
oh right, but they're not the new
but
issues.
they're nothing fundamentally new, apart from maybe grass cutting, you know, but
Yeah.
apart
Yeah.
from that. And we're going to add Swifts on as well, I think.
Of course.
Yes.
So, why wouldn't you? So the issue being then that these, it's an action for this group.
Yes.
Do you see what I mean? It's an
Yeah.
agenda item for another meeting, to bring that list up to date.
Okay.
And you could maybe just do a bit of work to update those, to bring it as a paper back to
Okay,
another
so,
meeting.
so
Because that captures it better, I
yeah,
think.
no,
than-
I wouldn't disagree with
than
that
just
at all,
the-
because, I mean,
just
the
the odd
reality is, even if we produced the list today, it would still, I'd be interested to see
I
the
think it
format
might
of the
be-
list for full council.
Yeah.
But basically what we're going to say is, between us, and I don't mind kicking it off and talking to Christina, we'll start, and I'm
Yeah.
sure
Yeah, between.
and then by the next time it will go on to the next climate change subcommittee agenda.
Yeah,
That's
and then it's
in
got
essence-
somewhere to go, because you might then want to share it with CSC or.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it sounds as if there's some stuff that's going to be done behind the scenes in order to,
Yeah.
to get it into place. Okay?
Well done.
I'll tell you what, I'm just going to make it up. This discussion is brilliant. I'm so impressed. Sorry.
So we're going to introduce any motions at all, we're just going to note the contents in the end when you're ready? What do you think?
That's fine, because that's all we can do on this. But there's going to be something in the agenda that, in minutes, that explains that we're going to be producing a more definitive
It's like an addendum.
Seaford Town Council Climate Change Subcommittee
List.
action list, or whatever we call it, project list.
Yeah, cool.
Are we going to mention the cure, of course? The creed, sorry.
Yeah, that will be on the list, yes. I think on that point, as I say, that discussion is very good. Unless there's anything other specific, I think we should move forward to the.
You have to propose.
Got to propose and note it, yeah.
Well, is to consider the study and note the contents of the report. So,
Proposal?
No, that's.
actually, I'm on the cycle.
Yes, that's the cycle.
I've got ahead of myself.
Yeah, you have. To provide a further update on the key work.
Yes, it's just to note the contents of the report. So if there's a proposal for that, thank you, Councillor, and second, thank you, Councillor, anyway. All those in favour? Oh no, you can't vote, can you? So I think that's carried.
Unanimous.
Okay, thank you for that. So we move on to agenda item 5, which is regarding the Cycling in Seaford study, September 2024. The purpose of the report was to provide councillors with details of the recent Cycling in Seaford study and to consider the installation of further cycling racks. So there was some queries from the floor earlier, but if you have, and we can address those shortly, but if there's any queries here?
Yes, we've obviously, thank you, Chair, yes, we obviously heard, this is being presented to me twice, this full report in community services, and in this meeting and in the informal climate change early on in the year, we had a meeting,
Yes.
didn't we?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I've seen the whole presentation twice, and the whole, if you implemented the whole lot, it's £3.7 million, I think it's that order, isn't it? But in reality, this professional report, which has been commissioned by a professional, was obviously funded by Israeli Climate Action, partly Seaford Community Project, but who basically owns it is a good question, but some of the contents in here could be superseded by other studies, like the East Sussex Local Plan, for example, which is their transport plan's being done at the moment. That's some various other issues like the Exit Bridge and access down to the Exit Bridge, if that ever gets passed and built. So there's still issues to do with promotion around the town. There's issues with leisure cycling and more what you call non-leisure cycling, which is more day-to-day. What's the word I want? Not non-leisure is what do I want? Anyone help me out? Well, there's a difference in leisure cycling and from going for work. You see, the preference is business use. Yeah, more business use. So there's preferences in how you take the approach. And there's a lot of examples in there. It is a very, very detailed approach. So what I was going to say is, we wanted to get something off the ground, and the two projects which Mr. McCann and Mr. Farland said, Samuel Farland said, it would be great if we could at least get something going. And I mean, I like this report to be used in a lot of ways for when we're looking at the various community aspects of our town, and even if parts of it do get used at certain stages, I think it would be very, very useful. So I would support what some of the farmers said, and if we can get those two, for now, at least we can get the two initiatives on the ground. But as you say, I don't think we need to necessarily take everything to a meeting every time we want to do something from this. It should be sort of integrated in and sort of used as and when we can use it and got funding for it. So anyway, that's a good starting point. No notes.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mock.
Thank you. So I'm just wondering whether, Chair, raising the issue again of disposal of land, when you're putting parking things down, and once you've got lots of them are in a row, then you're taking up that space. Now, just asking our officer here, does that fall under disposal of land? And I'm just raising it because I don't know. Because picking up on what we've heard this evening, it does seem impractical when so much money and funding, etc., is being invested, and then you've got salts and other places where you would like to see cyclists, and there are cyclists, that people can't just go up and do it. And I totally get that you can't just go up and do it, actually, even though you'd probably like to, because there has to be some procedure for doing that. But I'm questioning whether the procedure is something we could create that isn't tied up with disposal of assets or whatever, and land, or whether it's something else that it comes under, or whether it even touches on planning. I don't know. So I'm kind of asking to see whether you know.
Okay. Are you okay for me to take that question,
Please.
Chair? So there are some different guidelines, because the land that those cycle racks wish to be placed upon is Seaford Town Council's, but it would depend on whether the cycle racks are gifted to Seaford Town Council for adoption to look after on their assets list, or whether they would maintain under the ownership of Seaford Community Partnership. So that would be something that the officers would look at to see which route we would need to work with Seaford Community Partnership on placing those cycle racks.
For example, if they were vandalised, who would pay for the repairs to them?
It depended on whether they were gifted, the cycle racks to Seaford Town Council. If they were gifted, that would be Seaford Town Council to maintain.
Sorry if I just may make a point. I think there's two separate issues here. The South Hill Barn cycle racks would actually come from South Downs National Park. I don't know if that changes the discussion. They're not specifically through the recommendations or whatever of the Seaford Community Partnership cycle study. I don't know whether there's two kind of separate thought processes.
So it's more, I think, of the disposal of land, and whether it was which organisation was, how were they looking to be placed? Were they an asset, or were they the property
becomes
of?
your asset. I think that's how it works. They're going to give it to us. South Downs National Park. They don't look after it. So we paint it every 3 years or something. Anyway, that was just sort of, there's two separate issues on the way those specific items of salts versus sulphur barn. Sorry, Councillor B.
Thank you. This brings brings me to say how disappointed I am from the previous administration, who, when we pushed to make this a full committee, refused to allow us to have a full committee for climate change, which was disgusting in my opinion. And now we are beholden to the Community Services Committee. And what does that mean? It means that the Climate Change Committee is considered to be a second-class citizen. For instance, what happened in the summer one of our meetings was cancelled because we didn't have an officer time, and it's very much low down on the priorities. So now what happens, it comes down here, and now we've got an issue which is time dependent on the South Downs National Park, because they want, it has to be done in this financial year by the 31st of March, which means that we can make a suggestion to the Community Services Committee, who then will have it at their next committee, which then maybe has to go to full council because it may involve some money, because we've got to say it's going to cost £300 to put it in. So unless it comes out of community services budget, which it possibly could do, but it's symptomatic of the fact that it's like wading through treacle. And that's what I don't like about this situation. We are a climate change committee, we have no budget, we have no ability to do anything without asking some other committee's permission, and it takes maybe 6 months to get through to the stage where a decision might be made, which in the case of this, if we lose this window of opportunity, we won't get the money from South Downs National Park. However, having said that, as Mr McFarlane said, if these racks only cost like 500 quid anyway, it seems to me that as a climate change committee, we should be saying to the Community Services Committee, who should be saying on our behalf to the full council, we need an allocation of money to put in cycle racks wherever we can in Seaford at the appropriate places, to be decided by common research or decision, where we should put them. You know, whether it's by the medical centre, in the salts, in the crouch, wherever it needs to be, and maybe there needs to be a protocol for that, because it's ridiculous that if we are saying we want to promote active travel, that as a town council, which has a climate change committee, we are not taking the lead and saying we need to put these cycle racks in appropriate places, whether it's South Hill Barn or wherever. We could be funding them at South Hill Barn, it's going to be on our property, it'll be our property anyway, and we put it in ourselves and we look after it. That's what I'm thinking.
It's 2025, isn't it? You've got a bit more time.
Oh yes, but it's now September.
Okay.
We've only got five months till March, and who knows when that might go through. And then it's got to be enacted and spent before that time by the South Downs National Park within their budgeting.
Okay, thank you, President.
That's all. Sorry.
Just a few thoughts, if I may. Number one, as far as the climate change subcommittee abilities as they stand at the moment, I refer you back to item 4.2 from the last item, where there's a review of committee and subcommittees.
Yes.
So there is a further hope that what you've just described will no longer be the case if moving forward. I've spoken with the chair of the Community Services Committee, who is happy that we bypass their committee and go straight to full council with any resolutions that we have about the cycle parking from this meeting. So, and there's at least 2 full council meetings before the next community partnership, community services meeting. So we can bypass that, which kind of makes us a further, makes it even sillier that we can bypass the committee that we're the sub to.
Is that allowed?
It's, yes, it is, because, yes, it is.
Oh.
I have
Through you,
permission.
Chair, that's great news,
have
because
permission.
I was led to believe that everything we decided had to be sanctioned and go through that committee, not just the chair saying it.
Okay, well,
waving.
we will cross that bridge once
No,
we agree the fact
great.
through this committee, then it will go to
Great.
full council directly.
Fantastic.
Yes. So those are the 2 particular thoughts I think you had there. Sorry, Councillor Taylor?
No,
Oh, sorry. Councillor Mocker? Please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yes, just to say, that sounds all very good and proper and important, and I am wondering whether the issues that you want to talk about are that you will bypass and take to full council then would be the cycle racks at Salts and Seaford Barn only,
Correct.
or whether you are wanting, because if you wanted any more expanded look at where you would like to see cycle racks, you know, right across the town, which is certainly something that needs to be done, that would take a lot longer. So I can't propose or do anything like that, but I'm suggesting that if these are the ones that are mostly important at the moment, and there's a time frame on it, and a pocket, a money pocket on it, that those are the ones that actually you're very seriously taking to full council. But I do think, and I hear everything you're saying in terms of, you know, wanting cycle racks in all the right places, but I think that takes a bit of, and we can use the cycling report to do it, to underpin that, but I think that takes a bit more work to provide a map. You know, councillors will want a map to see where they might be, where they're going to go and things like that. So I think, yeah, I mean, right across STC, yeah, there is a bit of a map. So, but I think that might be a longer discussion. So what I'm saying is don't trip yourselves up with wanting everything at this particular moment. Maybe hone it in, and then, but because you're then setting that example, then follow it through with a proposal for the other places with investigation.
Thank you, Councillor. Just to follow up on those
Yeah,
thoughts.
sorry, I might be wrong.
The specific issues that we would be looking to bring to full council directly are indeed the cycle racks at Seaford Barn and the cycle racks at Swords.
Okay.
And in response to the thought from the floor earlier, there would be a recommend also that the issue related to other cycle racks located on STC land, I suppose in the first interest, noted in the report, the cycle report, be placed on the Seaford Town Council projects list. So it becomes another dedicated specific item that we can resolve, not in isolation on every single point,
Yeah.
when it becomes a global approach to how we get these cycle racks sorted. Project list. Councillor Nicholas?
So two things. One is I don't want to be approving cycle racks to be willy-nilly put anywhere in the town, and there has to be a limit on budget. And also, when you talk about the cycle racks at the Salts, it says on the west fence. Which is the west fence, please?
Oh, no idea, but I'm sure there's a map that.
The one on the west, I know.
By the fence. I don't know.
Does anyone?
This is the sea. I'm east, you're west. So if you look at the salts,
So
It's
is
gonna
it
be
going,
on your
is it
side,
going to
Salts.
be on that bit of tarmac bit?
I think so.
So I don't really want it there because one of the things I would like to see is for that area to be turned into a cycle path playground for children. So if you've got a great big cycle rack in the middle of it, that scuppers it. So can it be on the?
I think, so if I just make the note here, I think the idea of this particular issue is to vote on the fact that we want to agree that these will be delivered to the town council, and then there needs to be a diagram produced, and the money is made available. The additional money is made available from the town council for the installation of the racks. So I think that's the first hurdle to get over. And certainly for Seaford Barn, when in order to get hold of these things from South Downs National Park, we have to fill out a couple of points here, including a little diagram map of where Seaford Barn we would like these to be located. And that will be a discussion with the projects team and climate change subcommittee. And the same, I presume, we can do the same for, we need a map to show where the source ones will go. And if we're not going to go on the west.
the map's on page 19, the green ones are the new ones.
We seem to be speaking specifically about west by the fence, was it?
It's not
We also live on the south, don't we? They're not.
The question being, oh, okay, I've just been whispered in my ear that we might suspend standing orders for a moment, so we can ask a particular question to one of the gentlemen in the
Yeah, exactly.
who has a much
The
better
expertise
understanding. So I would propose that.
So second, yeah.
And seconded.
Yeah.
So what was the question? Where would these cycle racks be located? I think that was it, was it?
Okay, when the tennis courts were made smaller, on the west side, which is near the base, where the base is, there's now there's a ramp that leads up into the ramp that goes through the gates, and there's a load of concrete there, that load of tarmac that's there. So there's a space, I believe it was that was proposed initially a long time ago that there would be there, but it never happened.
Is that to the right of the skate park?
Yeah, so it's actually on the side of the Sorts Cafe. So the Sorts Cafe end is where the entrance is. So and there's a ramp that goes up into there's a ramp, and where the ramp is, there's a big space alongside there
Right, okay.
by the fence. It's on the west fence of the tennis courts, but it's not in the way of it. There's nothing. There's no space there for anything else.
That's great. Perfect.
Thank you.
Do I unsuspend it, or are we
Unsuspended.
we still in suspense?
Can I just ask a question?
We'll be back in.
We're back into normal orders.
You mean, can I just ask another
Oh yes, by
question?
all means. I mean, look, just
We're not in all
So how many, just for information, how many cycle racks would you recommend there?
I
In that location,
believe it
roughly.
was 2 sets of 3 hoops, so that's equivalent to 12 bikes worth. But it's 2 if they're next to each other, so that's just 6 hoops.
Right, okay.
There's 5 across the road, so if you want to
Yeah,
scale,
that's
there's 5
station.
outside there's 5 just outside the post office, so that's
Oh,
similar
exactly,
size.
yeah.
It's not very big.
So any more questions for?
Are there any plans to put a bike rack by the toilets in the sols? Because lots of kids come in on their bikes and use the skate park, and then their bikes are just thrown on the floor. I mean, they're probably not bothered, but...
There was a proposal within the report to take the racks that were right up on the Martello, which are just for front wheel only, which aren't very suitable for bikes, especially if they're loaded with, there's a lot of people travel through with loaded bags when they may be going for days out, and to move those into the salt so they're reused in that location you mentioned by the skate park, and then put a new rack there instead. It's an upgrade. That's one of the there's quite a lot of detail in the report around suggestions like that to reuse things that already exist.
Any more questions? So, standing orders, no more suspension on standing orders. So any more questions on?
I think just whilst we've got everyone here, I guess, I was down at the Salts at the weekend actually with my son at the skate park. So I noticed that there's loads of teenagers, loads of bikes down there, all kind of strewn everywhere. So I did make a mental note to kind of come back and revisit that at some point. Also dog poo as well, right? I was down with a group of people and there's, I think my wife stood in some dog poo and a 2-year-old toddler trod in some dog poo right by the skate park, so I think that's an issue we need to get rid of as well.
I haven't noticed dog poo as an agenda item.
No, but I just wanted to kind of just say that I think some signage or cycle racks, I think it's issues. There's other issues
Don't
as
poo
well,
on the
so-
cycle racks, is that?
Yeah.
Okay, point taken, no, that's an issue. Yes. Any other thoughts on this agenda item?
Could I make a suggestion, Chair? That we leave point 1. Point 2 should be to recommend to full council in that case. We're allowed to do that.
I think we can, I have it on authority that that's possible.
We recommend to full council that the installation of the additional cycle racks is taken forward as soon as possible,
Yeah.
and certainly within the time limit for the South Downs National Park proposal.
Yes.
Meaning,
Yes, because that will expire or something. Yes. Although I can't tell you exactly when.
Is it going to go on the agenda of the next full council? Because it's a quick item, isn't it?
I did speak with the assistant town clerk about this matter, and she kind of gave me the nod that it would be, it could be on this next town council or full council, or certainly the following one. But
Which is November.
yes, but that's
Okay.
still before the next.
Can we
community
say
services.
by November 24 then?
So I think the aim is to try and get it for the next full council. But if you put it as soon as possible, that's pretty much the same thing.
Thank you.
Well,
Yes.
not quite though in this current context. I think we've better have a date.
Yeah, put by November 24.
No, I wouldn't say November meeting. I'd say
No,
one
by.
full-
Bye.
By.
Bye.
Then if it doesn't meet this one, it's definitely on the next one, so unless you've got a deadline.
Happy with that?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah.
No, sorry.
The recommendation that you want to change, I need to note that, so could we just go through the suggestion
So
of the
Councillor
change
Lee,
again?
do you remember the specific,
Uh,
the
To
recommendation?
recommend to full
Full
council
council, not community services.
that the installation of the additional cycle racks is taken forward as soon as possible, and in any case by the 24th of
By-
November,
By November 24.
by the November meeting, or by the November 24th meeting, or whatever the exact date is.
Instead of additional racks, can we say the racks for Southfield Barn and salts?
Yeah, make it specific.
Well, that is in the contents of the report, I suppose, so, but yes, you could say that. I mean, those are the specific.
I know, but
My ideas
it's
about
fine.
general
Yeah.
cycle racks was something to think about, really, for the future,
Yeah.
as a, sorry, Chairman.
And if I may add, a further recommendation that the other cycle rack locations noted in the cycle report to be placed on the Seaford Town Council project list. And that will also appear on the climate change subcommittee projects list. I think it's worth making that point here. So those are three recommendations now. We added a recommendation about the motorcycle racks located on the Seaford Town Council land as noted in the report. Should be placed on the Seaford Town Council project list.
Mhm.
Yeah. Do we want to take all three together or one at a time? I think we could probably take...
we could together.
Sorry, all three together?
I'm just not clear on that third point. Because I said earlier that I wasn't happy to just blanket approve cycle racks at any
I know,
cost.
Councillor Bass, if it goes on the project list, then at the time that the project, that item on the project list comes to people, that's when the maps will be drawn and then it will go forward.
But it
It's
comes
not
to
a-
committee.
Yeah,
It's
That's
not
okay.
a, it's not a
That's
carte
fine.
blanche,
That's fine.
but at least it keeps it on the
Yeah.
distant
Radar.
horizon.
Yeah.
So if we take all three together,
Sure.
do we have anyone a proposer?
Yeah.
Very good, Councillor Bass, seconder. Councillor Meek. All those in favour? Okay, thank you very much. I think that was pretty much all unanimous. Okay, I see from this that we've now reached the end of the meeting, so I suspect I need to call this to a close at 8:39 PM. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.